your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good yawning this morning. Welcome to On the Clock. Today is Thursday, the 23rd of March, 2023. On the Clock with Erin Greene. I am your co-host, Gail Hanna. And here at On the Clock, we engage organizations, institutions, social and cultural leaders, and ordinary people to be better, to understand the impact of public policy, private sector development, and emerging social and consumer trends. On the Clock, we have conversations that help us understand and navigate a rapidly changing Bahamas. Today is Culture Thursday. As mentioned, I am Gail Hanna. Your host, Erin Greene, is joining us via Zoom today, as well as one or two of our guests. And Erin, are you there?
I'm still yawning, but it's a good morning. How you doing, Gail?
I'm doing well, Erin. How are you after you're in... Which week is this? Week 3 of post-Chick-Charney attack?
This will be 375.
375.
The psychological scars are far worse than the physical ailments.
Isn't that always the case?
Yes, I need to say that the most troubling thing is my inability to bathe properly.
Oh, my
Don't mind that it's the winter and it's frozen, you know. Yes. I still need to bathe.
Yes, this is very important, actually, yes.
Yeah, and so... it's the restriction of mobility that's the most frustrating part of this experience.
Well, you know, sometimes life tells us to sit down. Sometimes life tells us to rest, much against our will at times. So, you know, I'm happy that you are getting the rest, but we miss you here and can't wait for you to get back in studio.
Yes, it's the same thing here. I don't know. I got to figure out how to climb tree with a cast on because to get to the studio, I got to get up all those stairs.
Right.
But I'm working on it. Well, I'm definitely working on it.
Mr. Producer was working on, I think it was a Hachi set out of the southern window. We're working on an elevation contraption. And so if you are interested, perhaps next week we may have that organized.
This is awesome. This is awesome. I'm down for some old school technology.
So, Erin, you have some housekeeping matters for us this morning. I will let you get to that. So take it away.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Bahamas. How are you? It's great to be here, even if I can't be. And trust me, I am missing it. Let's get through these housekeeping notes on this Culture Thursday. So on Saturday, Equality Bahamas brings you the latest installment of the CEDAW Speaker Series. We're looking at Article 11, which addresses employment. The speaker presenting on Saturday is Hiroko Akizuki. She's a CEDAW committee member, and the discussion will be on the interpretation of Article 11, recommendations made to the Bahamas government in 2018, and progress towards compliance with CEDAW. The time is Saturday, March the 25th at 10 a.m., and you could register at tiny.cc/CEDAW11. That's tiny.cc/CEDAW11. And of course, you can go to the Equality Bahamas pages on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram for that registration information. Another quick note, this weekend is just filled with events. This evening, Rise Bahamas is hosting a discussion, that's Friday night at the American Corner at the Harry Seymour Library. Another event happening this evening, our good friend Scott Johnson, I want to say environmentalist, but he's an animalist, right? He is a conservationalist. And tonight at the Bahamas Historical Society and Museum, and that's at the corner of Elizabeth Avenue and Shirley Street, he is giving a presentation. And I'm certain is going to be great. It's called Wild Bahamas, a look at the prehistoric fauna, that's animals, the prehistoric animals of the Bahamas, with special focus on the Bahamian giant barn owl. It's a look at the prehistoric animals of the Bahamas with special focus on the Bahamian giant barn owl. And if you ever needed the call, this have to be a meeting about the Chickchani. Mm-hmm. It have to be a historical explanation about the Chickchani. But I think it's going to be a fantastic talk. Scott Johnson is a vibrant and charismatic speaker. He's an expert in what he does. And the Historical Society always hosts wonderful events. Also happening today in the United States of America, there is apparently a protest going on starting this morning at 10 a.m., just a few minutes ago. I don't see a name for the group except this, I think Lincoln Bain is attached to it. But they're having a number of events in Florida today, protests at 10 a.m. at the Bahamian Embassy. Town hall meeting at 7 p.m. in Miami. So it'd be very interesting. I'm going to talk about that a bit more on Monday. I don't have time today. Another quick note, March 21st, UNESCO celebrates World Poetry Day. Now that's important because right now as we speak, happening at UB, opening of the 2023 Blue Flamingo Literary Festival, and delivering the opening lecture titled Literature as Windows on Social Development from Human Agency to Algorithms this morning at 10 a.m. starting right now is Patricia Glinton McColis, the principal at Guanima Press Limited. Patricia Glinton McColis, also known as the Garland Woman because of her dedication to research and promotion of Bahamian folklore, is a poet, author, cultural historian, and editor. She was invested in the Bahamas Order of Merit in 2021 for contributions to literature, history, and culture, subjects on which she has written, spoken, curated, created documentaries, and published at home and abroad. She's also the first winner of the Bahamas Cacique Award for writing in 1995 and presented with a Lifetime Achievement Award for contributions to culture and literature from the Bahamas School of English Studies at the College of Bahamas in 2015. And her most recent work is Masters of the Sea, Regatta and Sailing Tradition in the Bahamas. That's happening at the University of the Bahamas right now, the opening of the 2023 Blue Flamingo Literary Festival. Two quick notes. I was looking at today's paper. We can't have a conversation about it today, but we shall talk about it on Monday. I do have to mention it briefly. And I just want to say quickly, dear Prime Minister, we are also disappointed in you. Don't watch nothing. You guys check out the front page. In fact, check out all of Nassau's Guardian, but check out the story on the front page featuring the Prime Minister's responses to and about Toby Smith. Last note, Gail, March is celebrated as Endometriosis Month, and I want to thank you, Gail, for selecting this topic and doing all the work, bringing together the questions and the guests for our conversation today. Mm-hmm. Before we get into the conversation, I want to tell you all about an event happening tonight, Endometriosis Month, and there's a virtual lecture entitled Living with Endometriosis. It's hosted by Dr. Dorita Francis Phillips tonight, Thursday, the 23rd of March at 6 p.m. And you can find the conversation, it's virtual, on Doctors Hospital's Facebook page. And on the Facebook page, you will also find a link, I think, to the Zoom access to the discussion. That's Living with Endometriosis, hosted by Dr. Dorita Francis Phillips, tonight, 6 p.m. And you can go to the Doctors Hospital's Facebook page for more information and to participate in the discussion. Gail, I'm excited for today's talk. You can take the mic.
Thanks a lot, Erin. As you mentioned, this month is celebrated as Endometriosis Month. And so it is a pertinent conversation for us to have, especially as Bahamian women, because many women in the Bahamas are actually affected by this condition and are either unaware of it or unaware of how to treat it. Endometriosis is a disease characterized by the presence of tissue resembling endometrium, the lining of the uterus, outside the uterus. And so today we want to explore the connection between endometriosis, infertility, PCOS, fibroids, and other conditions that affect everyday life, but also infertility and also painful times of the month being very painful. We'll put it like that. We are also joined today by Dr. Inga Pratt. She is a gynecologist and also she's an obstetrician and gynecologist, and I believe she is on Zoom. Dr. Pratt, are you able to hear us?
Good morning. I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Good morning, Dr. Inga Pratt. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we also are joined by Dr. Latazia Stewart. She is traveling today, and so she is doing her best to join us by Zoom.
I made it.
Awesome.
I'm here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stewart, for joining us as well, and welcome to On the Clock.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Pratt, as the medical doctor, we would like to speak with you first about endometriosis because it is affecting approximately 176 million women worldwide, but we are not sure about how many women in the Bahamas are affected. And so we will start with you. If you can give us a breakdown, first of all, if you can let us know briefly who you are, what it is that you do, your area of specialization, and then we will go into a few of the questions that we have about endometriosis so that our listening audience can learn more about it.
All right. So as you said, I'm Dr. Inga Pratt. I'm an obstetrician gynecologist, which basically means I deal with women's health throughout the entire spectrum of life, including delivering babies. So encountering endometriosis is very common, as well as the possible complications of endometriosis. I am from Fox Hill. I hail from the Fox Hill community, and my passion is early detection and prevention of diseases, laparoscopic surgeries, as well as high-risk pregnancies. So those are my areas that I'm passionate about.
Excellent. Do you have a brief breakdown? I gave a clinical definition of it, but in your words, when we speak about endometriosis, what are we speaking about?
So endometriosis is a complex disease, but to break it down, it's essentially where the lining, which is where normally when a woman has a menstrual flow or period, that's what we call it, the bleeding comes from the endometrium, the top layer of the lining of the uterus. Now, endometriosis occurs when that lining implants anywhere outside of the uterus. So it could implant on your bowel, it could implant on the ovaries. Rarely it can implant in distant locations like the lungs or the belly button. Oh, wow. So as long as that lining implants outside of the uterus, it meets the criteria for endometriosis. And there are various stages or severities of endometriosis. Endometriosis is believed to be caused by retrograde or backwards menstruation. So normally when there's a menstrual flow, everything usually comes out of the cervix to the vagina and comes out onto your sanitary item. However, it's believed with endometriosis, when we lay back or lay down, some of that menstrual blood comes out through the tubes and implants in the pelvis. However, because people have different severities, that's not the only possible way it could happen. Mm-hmm. Another possibility is that some of our cells, because we're all made from 3 cell linings, so sometimes endometriosis just develops from one of those cell linings within our bodies. So they're various, and each time it occurs, it can be potentially distressful to the patient.
So we usually connect this with painful periods, for example? Some women have told stories of having to lay on the floor during their time. Other women are experiencing extremely painful cramps. And then there are some women who still are affected by endometriosis, but do not actually experience very painful symptoms. So how do you know if you are affected by it?
So endometriosis is the hallmark of endometriosis is inflammation. So just keep thinking hot, 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 hot. So our bodies, those endometriosis deposits in the pelvis, when the period is on, they basically activate like charcoal tablets and they become hot, they become inflamed, and they sort of burn and sear everything surrounding it. So it's almost like being stuck with a hot poker. So for every depends on, number one, our pain tolerance, because some pain tolerance for everyone varies. And it also depends on where the endometriosis is embedded. If it's in the bowel, somebody may have more severe symptoms. So pain is one of the main hallmarks of endometriosis due to inflammation. So anytime you hear pain, especially the 2 days before the onset of a period, then my mind is already ticking. Okay, is this potentially endometriosis? Another symptom of endometriosis associated with the inflammation is bloating and nausea. So that's another symptom. Patients could also have extremely heavy periods. That's not often discussed, but a common symptom of endometriosis is heavy periods. And then, as you said earlier, endometriosis is directly linked to challenges with fertility. And that is because all of the inflammation could cause scarring, it could affect the tubes, it could cause blockage of the tubes, and also it prevents the tissues within the tubes from working properly. So, the egg and the sperm, they meet within the tubes. And if the tissues aren't flowing well, they're stiff, they're scarred, then there's a risk that the embryo may get caught in the tube and lead to tubal pregnancies as well.
Okay. Are the symptoms different for older women or postmenopausal women? Are they affected?
Endometriosis is a disease of premenopausal women.
Okay.
So menopausal women tend not to have a symptom of endometriosis because endometriosis, how I like to remember it, it begins with an E and estrogen begins with an E as well. So endometriosis is estrogen driven. And postmenopausal women have low levels of estrogen. Okay. So in general, you'll see women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s who suffer from endometriosis.
Go ahead. Sorry, Erin.
No, thank you. Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good morning.
Are there any risks for postmenopause who have experienced endometriosis pre-menopause? Are there any other risks post-menopause?
So the risks would vary depending on, number one, how severe their endometriosis was, and number two, what treatments were used. So with endometriosis, like I said, it could cause a lot of scarring. And that scar tissue could lead to pain even in the postmenopausal period. And also women with endometriosis tend to have a lot more surgeries. So with those surgical interventions, you have surgical complications, as well as many of the treatments for endometriosis are geared towards decreasing your estrogen level. So estrogen, even though it's a main factor in endometriosis, it's also important in a woman's life. It protects our heart, it keeps our cholesterol down, and most importantly, it protects our bones. So if a woman has been getting treated for endometriosis for a long time, she's at risk for weaker bones as well.
Do you have the numbers or the amount of women in the Bahamas that are affected by endometriosis?
Unfortunately, we don't keep a database of patients with endometriosis. And we have the additional challenge where, so endometriosis is diagnosed through a procedure called laparoscopy. It's a fancy name, but all it means is putting a special camera into the belly, through the belly button, and looking and seeing. That's how endometriosis is classically diagnosed. Now, unfortunately, because of limitations, sometimes we're unable to do that procedures, especially in the public sector. So many times we base it on the history, meaning what the patient tells us, and the examination, and proceed to treat based on that. So it's hard to really quantify the numbers, but in terms of percentage of patients probably seen within a practice throughout a year, I'd say about 20 to 30% of patients have endometriosis. And that's a low number.
How much stigma of talking about chronic pain have on seeking out a diagnosis, in your opinion? We spoke about very painful periods or that time of the month, experiencing a lot of pain. And a lot of us have the experience where you kind of just suck it up and deal with it, or you try to move through a day without indicating that you're in a lot of pain. In your opinion, or through your experience, have you seen the ignoring of the chronic pain affect a patient seeking out a diagnosis of this matter?
I think it depends on our cultural perception of pain. I think, especially Afro-Caribbean women, we have this perception that our periods are supposed to be painful and we're supposed to just bear it and move on. And I think, especially as women enter the academic environment, homemaking, as well as professional environment, we don't want to, miss days of work because we're having pain, or have to step out because we're having a symptom of endometriosis. So there is a stigma associated with chronic pelvic pain, and it's platforms and forums like this to raise knowledge and awareness of these conditions, and patients to step out of the darkness and into the light and get whatever assistance and help is needed. And I think if the whole community supports women and allows them, number one, to first of all be able to express what they're having. If someone is saying that they have period pains or bad pains, we shouldn't overlap them and say, oh, I had a bad toothache, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or we should give them the resources that they need to get the assistance that they need, because it is a prevalent problem and it has a huge impact on their day-to-day life.
If I may, is there a space available in your practice or in the field locally for men to engage and to learn more about the condition and the experiences that women have, particularly because endometriosis can affect our experience of sexual intimacy?
That's a very good question. So, of course, partners are able to come in for visit the patient, and at that time, during patient education, they are informed of what the diagnosis is and what that means in terms of sexual intercourse. Because as you say, it can cause painful intercourse, something called dyspareunia. So, but that's on a one-on-one basis. I've never really considered, a general sort of talk about it directed for partners, so that they, from their end, so they could understand how intimate acts are being affected, and not only that, how their partner may have challenges, doing certain things during the month outside of intimacy. So definitely, I think that that's something a mantle that we could take up and explore for sure. But they are welcome to visit, and they are welcome to ask as many questions as they can. And I find that partners in general are very responsive once they understand what's going on. So once we pull out the diagram, because I love to use that, and show them, okay, this is what's happening, this is where this is, they have a great understanding. And I feel like having the support of everyone in your life helps a lot with the endometriosis diagnosis.
Absolutely. One more question, Gail. I would love for us to sort of go back to the experience of endometriosis in the Bahamas. But before we go there, I get a question. Is it possible that younger women, so I'm 46, I consider myself still younger, but not the youngest. But is it possible that younger women were not aware or are not aware that they actually have endometriosis because their perceptions and expectations about their body and about intercourse have distorted by representations of sex in music and popular culture. For instance, like even last night, I couldn't think of the name. There is a popular song and dance in dancehall reggae called Daggering. And the whole idea is that it is pleasurable to have this aggressive form of penetration. A young lady with endometriosis may not be aware that she's actually experiencing pain from a physical ailment versus the intensity of the act of sex.
I do agree with you. Culture definitely, in medicine, culture plays a huge part because medicine should be accessible as well as acceptable, meaning within the cultural norms of society. And now that you pose a question, honestly, many women do not present because of painful intercourse. So they may be having painful intercourse and they may just think it's part of the course. They mostly present for the other symptoms of endometriosis within our population. So that is definitely something to consider and something to think about.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for entertaining the idea.
Dr. Pratt, can endometriosis be treated? And if so, are there any holistic, natural, bush medicine treatments, over-the-counter treatments? What are the best ways to go about treating endometriosis once diagnosed?
So endometriosis, there's a huge spectrum of treatment for endometriosis. And the mainstay is definitely the holistic treatment in terms of what we eat, how estrogen is working in our body. So because we know endometriosis E is affected by estrogen E, we have to think about things that we eat that help naturally decrease the inflammation that estrogen causes. So that's one of the main things. And of course, it's difficult because the diet that would help to treat endometriosis is not a part of our regular Bahamian diet. So in a lot of ways, we have to sort of change the way how we eat. And Bahamians are coming around, but it's definitely diet driven. So things like fiber. Fiber is very, very important. It helps to decrease inflammation in the body. Fruits and vegetables. So I always tell patients, don't drink fruits, eat fruits. So the natural fruits and vegetables, things like beans, lentils, chickpeas. Notice I haven't said macaroni and cheese, peas and rice. So it's opposite to what we normally eat, So instead of our veggies and our fruits being a side, they need to be they need to be the star of our plate. And then lean meats like fish, they have essential oils that help. Chicken, turkey, stuff like that. Even red meat in small amounts will help, but it's just changing the topography or how our plate looks. Our plate should look really green, fiber rich, and that will help in innumerable ways. And also nuts. Nuts help as well. Nuts and seeds, they're helpful as well. And supplements like zinc, supplements like magnesium, those supplements also assist in reducing the symptoms of endometriosis.
Alrighty, Dr. Pratt, before we go to a break, is there a connection between endometriosis and fibroids? A lot of women have suffered from fibroids, maybe undergone surgery to assist with removal of fibroids, etc. Is there a connection between the two?
And fibroids are both estrogen-driven diseases. So, and fibroids more so is more common in people of African descent. So we'd see a lot of fibroids in our community. So there's definitely a correlation in terms of being both estrogen dependent. But in terms of one causing the other or vice versa, it has not been shown as yet. Because especially for fibroids, we're unsure of what the real causes are, because some research has shown it's, relaxing your hair, it's certain diet, but then we have patients who, never relax their hair or are vegan and they still have fibroids. So, and because it's more common in an underserved community, meaning Black women, it's not being researched fully and thoroughly.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Pratt, for that very detailed explanation. We're going to go to the break, and then we'll hear some from Dr. Taz, who is being patiently waiting with us. And we'll speak about endometriosis and infertility right after the break. You're on the clock with Erin Greene and Gail Hanna.
Easter is right around the corner, and the Nassau Guardian is partnering with the Easter Bunny to give something special to you. Would you like to give your child an Easter basket filled to the brim with chocolate bunnies, surprise eggs, gift certificates, and more? Then you should enter your child into the Nassau Guardian's Easter Coloring Contest. There are 3 different categories: 5 to 6, 7 to 9, and 10 to 13. Deadline for entry is Monday, April 3rd at 4 p.m. Purchase your copy of the Nassau Guardian to get your Easter Coloring Contest sign-up form and let your children color away and win one of 3 baskets filled to the brim with Easter goodies from the Nassau Guardian. The Nassau Guardian's Easter Coloring Contest. For more information, call 302-2370.
Well done, Easter Bunnies. Good job. Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Radio app is here. Listen live to all our Guardian radio shows and live video stream select programs in our studio. Get information about Guardian radio shows and our hosts. Send messages, including text, email, and even call. All from our amazing new Guardian radio app. Download it free today in your App Store for your Apple device or Play Store for your Android device. The all-new and improved Guardian radio app.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
In the bush when I was just a little tadpole, I see my daddy pushing on down in the crowd, boy. It's so hot, it's so deep. Say, boy, it's crab's kind of hard to reach. Go past me, boy. I ain't let this crab play the tricks at me. You touch it to the left, you touch it to the right. Took her to the north and south, the crab brought right on. Catch the crab, boy. Catch the crab, boy. Catch the crab, boy. I'm walking. Catch the crab, boy. Catch the crab, boy. Catch the crab, boy. I'm walking.
We are back on the clock with Erin Greene, and today we are speaking with Dr. Inga Pratt, an obstetrician and gynecologist, and we are going to hear from Dr. Latazia Stewart, better known as Dr. Taz. She's a doctor, motivational speaker, and author of the book, The Secrets of Faith in Fertility, An Untold Journey of Faith, Fertility, and Favor. Dr. Taz, are you still there?
Yes, I am. And do pardon the background noise. I hope it's not too loud. I'm here at the airport preparing to travel, but I wanted to be.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Are you able to give us a bit more information on your background? And then if you can go into your journey, I would say, of your pregnancy, infertility, etc. Feel free.
Thank you. Well, I am very, very grateful to have this opportunity to share with you this morning. So thank you for the invitation. I am a mom of 3 rambunctious kids and a wife to 1 husband. But my conversation around infertility really stems from one of shame and embarrassment. As you mentioned, I am the author of the book, The Secrets of Faith, Infertility, an untold journey of faith, fertility, and favor. And the reason why I have untold journey is because prior to last year, not even my closest friends or my mom knew the details of my infertility challenges. It was something that I was very embarrassed about, shameful about. And I think primarily because conversations like this was never really held. Even after I had my kids, nobody knew. And I realized that I had to release that shame. I had to do some work with myself. I also recognized that there were individuals who I came to find out were struggling with this also silently, and they were not alone, that it's not their fault, that they can have help, and that, this is not something that they should feel embarrassed or shameful about. It's just another medical condition. And there are resources like Dr. Inga Pratt and her team that are available to provide that assistance. So I'm here now in these infertility streets and trying to increase the awareness as much as possible to provide support to women and couples experiencing infertility, miscarriage, and pregnancy and infant loss.
Forgive me if this is too invasive, but and you can choose not to answer. But did you suffer from endometriosis during your infertility journey? Was that a part of it at all?
So I actually suffered from another endo that's very silent and rarely talked about, and that's endometriitis. Okay. So endometriitis has to do with inflammation of the uterine lining. And when my doctor first used that word, I've heard of endometriosis before. But I was like, what's endometriitis, right? And it had several months and rounds of antibiotic before it was actually cleared. But it also prevents challenges with regards to having women get pregnant and their embryo being able to implant in their uterus.
Okay. So you were affected by endometriitis. I don't want to mispronounce it. Endometriitis.
Endometriitis,
okay.
Along with a myriad of other issues, from scar tissues to ovarian cysts to fibroids also that we were talking about earlier. I had a myomectomy procedure, for those who don't know, which is procedure that removes the fibroids. So I've had my fair share of infertility challenges that I can relate to many women going through various struggles in this topic.
So you assumed that you weren't, that you were fertile, let's say, for the sake of the conversation, for I see within your 20s and 30s. So when did it occur to you that maybe something needs to be checked out, or maybe there's something else I need to do between you and your husband? When did it click that maybe I need some help in this area?
Yeah, so as you said, it was something that I did not realize I didn't imagine I had infertility challenges. I couldn't ever have dreamed that. I mean, in our community, as a Black woman, as a Christian woman, I think there's almost this unwritten expectation that we are going to have kids. And I saw all my family members with kids, all my close friends had kids. So when my time came, my husband and I, after enjoying our life for a bit, we were like, what's going on here? Like, why are things not happening
by now, or
and
should have a child
we were trying, we were having fun, and it just was not clicking. The clicking wasn't clicking. So eventually we did go, and there was a battery of tests that was done, and we were diagnosed with infertility. And let me say something about that particular word. Prior to last year, even though I wrote a whole book about it, I was not able to even speak the word infertility. So, yeah. it was several years into my marriage, and when my husband and I finally decided to go and get checked out, we were diagnosed with infertility.
Can I ask you, and again, you can choose not to answer, was IVF part of your journey?
Say that again?
Was IVF part of your journey?
It was.
Okay.
It was part of my journey. It was one that I did not plan on. And I talk about this in my book, how when the doctors first suggested it to me, I was like, well, the devil's a liar. that ain't for me. You know, that's not
interference
that's not a part. Yeah, no, that's not in my cards to have. And I had to come to terms I was in my fertility journey, and again realizing that path does not have anything to do with my faith. That was another area that I go into very deeply in my book because, you know, especially in the Bahamas, which is known as a Christian community, we sometimes struggle with, you know, where do we go as it relates to our fertility and our faith? And, you know, is there something wrong with our faith when we're not able to have children, right? So, yeah, I did have IVF as a part of my journey, which many people were like, what? when they found that out last year in my book. So, yeah.
Dr. Pratt, are there options for treating infertility in the Bahamas? For example, is there somewhere that a woman may be able to go? Is your office the best place for that, for example? Is she still with us?
Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So if a woman suspects that she has endometriosis, the best next step would be specialist review by a gynecologist. And the initial assessment will be done in office. And like I said, it may require some additional testing beyond the ultrasound, including the laparoscopy, which is a minor surgical procedure. But a specialist gynecologist review would be the best option.
Okay. And you're referring to infertility, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So infertility is complex, like Dr. Stewart said. It's very, very complex. So there are many aspects to it. It's not just what even I traditionally thought infertility was. So it's very, very complex. There are many different factors. But the first step is definitely, if you suspect you have a challenge, if you think you may have a challenge, come in, have a discussion, get some investigations done, and see what next steps are, because options are available locally. And if referrals are needed for IVF, that can be done. So a lot of testing can be done locally and then just to go off the IVF procedure.
I'll read a few messages here, text messages, Erin, if that's all right.
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
Great topic, very relatable. Another one says, what's sad is that I had to hide my IVF because I was told my insurance would not cover my birth or my child if they were conceived by IVF. Dr. Pratt, is that something that you've heard of before, where insurance would not cover the birth?
I've heard that.
You have, Dr. Taz?
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up. I actually was having a conversation with several individuals while I was on my book tour in the Bahamas last year. And I was stunned to know that childbirth for individuals that had fertility treatment were not covered. I've never heard of that. And so that was very disappointing. And I think, again, this conversation and awareness is needed to support women, especially those in underserved communities. Having a family shouldn't just be a privilege. It should be a basic right. If a family, you know, a husband and a wife decides that that's what they would like to do. So having limitations and barriers like insurance and financial costs surrounding that is really something we need to help improve on.
Are there any communities or support groups that maybe you have been a part of or founded yourself for women living with infertility? We speak about the shame, the shunning, the taboo. How have you found support on your journey since revealing what's going on with you or what happened with you?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So, you know, when I first came out with my book, my intent was pretty much just to share my story, especially to help some individuals who were close to me that I had not been fully open with, that I knew that if they knew more of my journey, they could find help and hope. However, it has evolved in the past year, and I have been providing additional coaching services for women that experience infertility. I have been on Instagram providing additional resources and information to help women and couples. And I have to say, I've been finding more purpose for my life in this work and in this space, and have been connecting with several other ministries, and one in particular that I've been working alongside that I'll be doing an event with eventually, with Akriba Lightborn. I've also done some presentations and shared information with the Wife Her Ministries, who recently hosted an event at Galentine Vibes in Canada. And I've just been out sharing and in the different community spaces so that we can get the help and support that women need. And so, yes, individuals can follow up through my website at Dr. Taz, which doctor is spelled all the way out, DoctorTazz.com, where they're able to, book a free support session with me. And, we can, begin to explore ways to provide help for them further.
Women can experience violence, pressure, divorce in some cases, emotional stress, anxiety, depression, and more when impacted by infertility. What would you say would be the partner, husband, boyfriend, the man's role and attitude in the infertility journey? And how much does that make a difference in your opinion? And that's a question for both you and Dr. Pratt.
Yeah, so two things to that. One, the journey of infertility is one that is experienced by both male and female. There are some instances where there is a male factor that contributes to the infertility of the couple. The second part to that is, while infertility may be mostly seen as an issue that women are the ones that show their emotions as it relates to, men also experience personal pain from infertility. They have that expectation as well to grow a family. And so we have to acknowledge them in this space as well in terms of what they go through. And then as it relates to the couple where the male may be looking at the woman and saying, well, you clearly got an issue, I got to go elsewhere. I actually had somebody on my platform the end of last year who shared that her husband left her because he said she was barren. And, God bless her heart. She was able to find herself in another relationship. And she, in the past month, actually gave birth to her second child. So, we got to realize that when a couple is going through infertility challenges, there are resources available. Our churches and our Christian communities and other organizations truly need to have conversations like this, have roundtable conversations so that both the male and female can have a safe space to engage in and be able to get the help that they need and realize it's nothing to be embarrassed about. If there's one thing I can anybody listening take away from this conversation, let's silence the shame. Like, it's not your fault. There is help available. And let's break the silence on this conversation so that we can help more individuals.
Dr. Pratt, any comment on that as well in terms of the other parties' support or their lack of support, attitude, or role in the infertility journey and how that may make a difference?
I always tell couples that infertility is everybody's business. So essentially, the main thing is to remain supportive of each other and not play a blame game, because even if we find an underlying issue like PCOS or endometriosis, the couple still needs both persons in order to achieve fertility. Because at the end of the day, we still need an egg, we still need a sperm, we still need a uterus. So it's important that partners are extremely supportive, and it goes both ways. When frustrations are high, it's important to have a dialogue about it. I think a lot of times couples run into challenges when the discussion is not taking place. So it's important to continuously talk, continuously support each other. And I try to impress upon couples what they will be up against, because they have to know, listen, this is going to take a toll on you emotionally. This is going to take a toll on you financially, because everything with fertility is expensive, number one, because the investigations are expensive and insurance doesn't cover it. So it's expensive. It's very time-oriented, meaning you have to do certain things at particular time for both persons within the couple. So it's emotionally draining. So I think if they are better prepared for what they could potentially face, and I think those things help a lot. And let them know, listen, you are there for each other. You have to be there for each other. And that's very, very important.
Well, we are out of time, ladies. This conversation, obviously, we can go at great length, but unfortunately, we have to go. Dr. Pratt, if you can quickly let us know where to find you, or how people can get in contact with you. And then Dr. Taz, if you are able to do the same.
Okay. So Dr. Inga Pratt, I'm at Advanced Health Center on Shirley Street in the Shirley Street Plaza. And our contact there is 393-0614, or you can email us at advancedhealthcenter, spelled CENTER, @icloud.com.
Perfect. Thank you. Dr. Taz?
Yes, I am available through Instagram and also through Facebook at Dr. Taz, and that's doctor spelled all the way out, DOCTORTAZZ. Individually via my website where they're able to book a free support session. Also at drtaz.com. For those looking for my book, it is available at various bookstores in Nassau and also in Freeport, the Logos Bookstore in Harbor Bay, the Miles E. Monroe Diplomat Center Oasis Bookstore, also at the Black Food and Culture Shop on East and Robinson Road, and in Freeport at Bellevue Bookstore, Giffen Bookstore.
Thank you very much. Erin, any closing remarks before we head out?
Listen, I want to thank the ladies for such a wonderful discussion. Thank you, Dr. Taz, for joining us while traveling. I wanted to explore whether there are holistic or what we call bush medicine treatments or remedies, or, for women experiencing endometriosis or even infertility. But this means we have another time to talk, hopefully. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Gail. This has been a wonderful discussion. I'm so glad that you organized it.
Thank you so much, Erin. Tune in to On the Clock with Erin Greene tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Take this injection, sure you understand. He wrote a prescription prescribed for me. He said down the road, there's a low